think we probably need to think more about. The more the government uses third parties and transparent third parties, if you will, to articulate policies, the more the information that's used to both develop the policy and also to make decisions that may have real impacts on people may be based on information that's not necessarily held by the government. It's held in a transparent way by a third party. And so identifying what the what the responsibility of that third party is, of the government agency making decisions and that sort of thing, I think we're going to need to all work together as a community to identify and sort through those issues.
Okay. Just a quick follow-up. And you know that this was a particular hot course of the public access community. And this will, I'll put this back out to everybody as a question, but I'll ask it of Dan right now. One of the things that our community sees as lacking, as a challenge, is that there is no leadership from the executive branch or within the executive branch for government-wide policies. There's nobody talking about FOIA across the government, although the president did, Eric Holder just did put out the FOIA guidelines. But there's no leadership from the White House on a broad information policy. We see that data.gov and data sorts of things are coming. But do you see that, now that you're not in government, as a problem? Because I know you heard from a lot of us when you were in government about the failure, particularly of OMB, to provide real leadership and vision across the government.
Yes, while I was at OMB, I heard about me.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a lot about this during the transition.
Right.
And I think the signal that the White House sent when Vivek was announced as the Chief Information Officer, which was not a title that had been used, demonstrates that there indeed is, and Vivek will do an extraordinary job in bringing these issues together, working with the agencies, working with the industry community, in identifying and what are the policy issues, and Beth in her role working to bring these in through OSTP. And so really it's a team effort, and the role of OMB is important, the role of OSTP is important, the role of the policy councils, the role of federal chief information officers. But I think that you're seeing a commitment to the issue, both in terms of technology and in terms of policy. And that's why, right, as Beth talked about, one of the main actions during these 120 days is to identify what are the policies going forward that need to be issued or refined to implement the directive, and then how can, as Vivek will certainly talk to us about and we'll see happen over the next months and years, how will OMB really work to implement those policies? So I'm optimistic that things are moving in a positive direction.
Okay, great, thanks. Now we're going to change gears a little bit and go to Catherine McFate. Catherine, you've been playing a key role in the efforts of the nonprofit community at both the federal and state and local levels, or the national and state and local levels, to ensure transparency and accountability in both the bailout and in the stimulus. What needs to be done in terms of policy and practice to make these programs more transparent and more accountable to the public?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I will answer that question in a minute, but I think we should just take one moment and savor this.
Yes.
This is an amazing moment that we're in.
Yes.
Anybody who's working on transparency and accountability, and we should thank them for being here, yes, and being part of this. So
thank
I
you.
needed to acknowledge you for, yes, that, because this is a conversation we wouldn't have been having, no, 4 months ago, obviously. I've been working with a set of nonprofit public interest groups who came together in December to create something called the Coalition for an Accountable Recovery, to try to push for certain kinds of accountability and transparency, particularly in the Recovery Act, that to ensure that the $787 billion that goes out is actually spent effectively, meets the social needs that we know are growing every day because of the economic crisis, and really respond to public priorities. So there's 3 things that we've come up with, they've come up with, that are important in how we deal with Recovery Act. First, there's a request that every entity that receives Recovery Act money of more than $25,000 will actually report monthly to a centralized database answering what money it's spending, for what purpose. Are you reconstructing a school? Are you weatherizing houses? How's the money being spent in terms of the broader purpose? And who have you hired? What jobs are you creating? What jobs are you saving? So that's the first ask for the entities that are receiving money to actually be reporting to a centralized data set, recovery.gov. Second, that the information on that website will be publicly available and in a searchable format so that people can take it out, use it, manipulate it, be able to say, okay, this is how the Recovery Act money is being spent in my local community. This is how it's being spent in my city. This is how it's being spent in my state. We want to see all the money that's being used to weatherize, all the money that's been used for public school construction. So we want to be able to manipulate the data. And third, at the state level, we don't want to just look at tracking how the money's being spent, but we'd like to see the processes at the state and local level whereby decisions are being made about where that Recovery Act money is going. We'd like to see those processes, those decision-making processes, to be more open, transparent, and participatory. I have here a list. And you can get this on progressivestates.org. AccountableRecovery.net is a website you can go to look at the Coalition for an Accountable Recovery.
We'll put this up on the website.
Okay, but this is a list of what states are the processes that states are attempting to establish to get out the Recovery Act money, the Recovery Act money. Questions about who's responsible in terms of ultimate decision making, what the role of the legislature is, are there mandated public hearings, do they have a website, what's on the website. So we're trying to track how they're doing it, and there are 50 different ways it's being done, which does not make citizen participation easy. We are now there, but so these seem to be, on the face of them, pretty simple asks. We're asking that you report on who's getting the money, that there's a good website up that people can use, and that you open up the decision-making process. But of course, there are interests all over the place that will be resisting these. The first major challenge we have on the first ask is the issue about private contractors. Okay, in most places, private contractors will resist telling you how they're spending the money, what jobs are being created, etc. And we think it's critically important that it's not simply the public entities that are receiving the funds, but anybody that they subcontract with all the way down the line, that we can track that money all the way down the line and down to the ground to where jobs, we hope, are being created. Just as an example, there's a GAO report that came out recently that said last year there were $295 billion in overruns in defense contracting, just in the 95 contracts they looked at. That's 40% of the whole recovery package in 1 year in defense contracting that people weren't paying attention to. So we have to get inside the contracting. It can't just be the public agencies that are then doing the contracts with the private business, because we know that's going to happen. Second, the information on the website. A good example of how not to do it would be what happened with TARP, because people don't realize this, but under the bailout, under the bank bailout, there actually were some kinds of transparency requirements that were built into that. They were supposed to do some kinds of reporting. But even in the two websites that the Obama administration has now created to look at the information that's been collected, it comes in big chunks in PDF reports, so you can't get in, you can't search it, it's really hard to find the information. The nonprofit sector, there are 3 websites for those at home who might want to look this up, for those of you in the audience. Bailoutwatch.org is one place. ProPublica and the Center for Public Integrity and the Center for Investigative Reporting. All 3 of those organizations are doing a lot of very good investigative reporting about where the financial money is going, and it's taking a lot of work to be able to pull out the information that is available publicly and sift through it. So let's not do that again. Let's do it in a way that everyone in this room could go in and find the information that they need. And then I talked already about all the different processes that are going on at the state and local level in terms of figuring out how and where to spend this money. So what can you do as citizens, as organizations? I would encourage you to look at the processes that are going on, to go to Coalition, the Coalition for an Accountable Recovery. Look at what they're doing if you're interested in this. for those of you at home who are on this website, I would encourage you to look at what